Hey guys, welcome back. I've got an enormous amount of die cuts that I've already cut out and coloured, and we're going to try and make a more monochromatic card today using just Lawn Fawn products. Yeah, so let's see how that goes. Let's get into it. So first of all, I'm going to go through the stuff I've used. I have the excuse me, the Lawn Fawn Flippin' Awesome and the add-on dies that I have already cut, but I've used, let me turn this sideways, I've used this main piece, which is your main mechanism, and then I've used this like decorative panel that it'll sit on, and also this outline, sort of plain outline piece that you need 4 of those anyway to create the main part. There's lots of extra decorative stuff that you can add to it, but I didn't use very much more of that. And then I just use this piece for the handle, if you like, the pulley, so that people know what to do with it. Hopefully. You might have to show them, especially if they're not card makers. And then I have, let me just get this out of the way. Then I'm going to make a standard A2 size card, which is also why I decided to go for this Flippin' Awesome. I didn't want to make a slimline, although this would work. You'll see in a second I've got thousands of these pieces. But I didn't want to do too oversized a card. So, and I wanted to keep it as monochromatic as possible. So for my background, which is going to fit the whole front of an A2 size card, is the Simon Says Stamp Faceted Snowflakes. This came from one of the, I think this was December or January's 2022 kit from them, monthly card kit. And so you'll see that it's just in plain white cardstock. I have a plain white A2 card base as well. Most of the mechanisms are in white. I have coloured one part of it, but you'll see that in a minute. So I used that just for a bit of extra texture and something in the background. I didn't want it to be so plain, but I needed it to be as monochromatic as possible, and I'm going with obviously a green, as you can see here, a green monochromatic look. Now for the stamps, I used a lot. I used the, basically what I did was I sat one day, stamped a whole bunch of images. I had an idea in my head, stamped them, coloured them all, cut them out with my die cut, with my scan and cut. If you've got the coordinating dies, obviously use those. But I used a variety of stamps, and this is where shopping your stash is so good, because you'll see, and once you start doing it more and more, you'll see how many different things will mix and match, and you'll be able to, you know, integrate them together. So I have the Tiny Christmas, which I used the Santa and the dog from that. I then have the Tiny Winter Friends, which I used all the Winter Friends. I've used the presents. I used these two little, like the cup, what's it, cocoa, and the candy cane. I actually used those to stamp onto one of the other images. I used the snowman, the reindeer, the little rain, and the sleigh. I then used Tiny Halloween. I know, Halloween, Christmas, what? But I decided there was going to be a Ghost of Christmas Past, so I had to have him. Oh, and I also used the little cat. There's a tiny little cat in this set. Then from the Tiny Friends, I used the dog and the cat as well. So they're nice and little, same sort of size proportion. And then I've got the village shops, which this village shop in particular, and there's a whole bunch of things here you can stamp into these spaces, but I used the candy cane, like I said, from that other set, and the cocoa mug thing to stamp in there. My cat's at my door. And then I stamped and coloured and cut all of these shops. I also used some of the some of the little sayings here with the post and the bench and bicycle as well. I then, from Yeti or Not Lawn Fawn stamp set, I used mostly this is for the sentiment, but it's also for the trees and the like Christmas tree and the star. I like the shape of them and that, so I went with that. This one is for the background, which I'll show you. We're going to use this snowy background. So that's what, and this is Snow Cool. These are all lawn fawn, by the way. I have the Winter Village, which again I didn't use this one because it already has like a slope on it. So I didn't use that one. I used that individual house. I think I used all of these. Oh, I didn't use that one. But I used all of the other houses here that have, I'm just checking, that have the snowy tops already on them. But you can add extra snow, so I actually stamped a few more of these, and the lamppost as well. And then from Happy Village, excuse me, I used the fence and the little like parcel deliveries, because you know, like at Christmas time you'll end up with 10,000 parcels rocking up on your doorstep. That's what those are. So they're not wrapped presents, but these are your parcels before you get your presents. So I thought that would be quite cool to use. So when you make your mechanism, you need 4 of the plain squares. Like I say, there are decorative pieces, so I have those 4. And then you need this main mechanism, which is this funny thing. Now it scores these 2 tabs here, which you fold, and that's actually the only thing that's going to, hold this closed. And then there are score lines along here. There's 4 score lines, and you score those. And what I do is I fold them one way, and then I fold them back, because this is the bit that's actually going to move, and that's the part that you want to make sure that it's going to move nicely. So once we've put this together, what you'll land up with is you'll fold this over. These 2 tabs will tuck under, but this is the only place you'll have adhesive, which I'll show you again. And then along each of these sections of that where you've scored, that's the only bit that's going to hold each of these squares on and create you almost like a little storybook, right? You know I love storybook type things. So that's what we're going to create, but I need to create the actual scenes first before I completely adhere them here. So there's a bit of stamping and inking we're going to do before we get to that. And then, like I say, this is the decorative piece. This is my full size. This is the embossed piece I did. It's very subtle, and then my card base. So we'll worry about those in a minute. I also have these 2. So this is the piece that cuts out, that will go on the end here to show somebody what to do. Now obviously if you do these in different colours, then that will help show it up. But what I did was I just coloured in the section that cut out here, this triangle, which I'm going to pop back in, so it'll be almost like an inlay. I just coloured that in a pale grey. So one of the greys that I used, I did use a bit of greys and greens basically to colour these things in. So that's going to be that part of the pull tab. So to start with, I'm going to ink, put some snow in the background. Very easy to do. All I'm going to do, so for this main panel, because this piece is going to come out, this can become part of your scene that you're creating. So you're going to have all these 4 as little mini scenes, or whatever you want to put on them. And then this section that actually folds out. So when you go to this first fold line on there, so if I open that, you've got, so when it's closed, you'll have the last fold line. But if you go to the very first one, that's where that section there is what you can see as you've pulled it out. So that's what you can use as space to put your little scene or whatever you're doing. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that I put snow excuse me, in this section, right? So just to make it easier, oops, I'm only going to work up to that first score line there, and I'm not going to cut, I mean it doesn't matter if this gets inked because we're going to cover that anyway. And so what I'm going to do is put some tape along here so that I don't go over that section, and then I'm just going to put some snow on there. that made any sense. So let me zoom you in for this bit a little bit more anyway. Right, so I have the snow stamp here. This video might be a bit longer. I might speed through some of the other bit. And then I've also got some Lawn Fawn Hippo ink. I thought, because I've got a whole monochromatic green grey kind of look, the grey is just more because I didn't want the white cardstock to stay white, if that makes sense. I thought I needed to bring in something else just to add to it. Now this may be a little too, you know, too white, too grey. So I'm just going to grab a piece of paper. And I'm going to stamp off onto here before I stamp it onto each of these pieces. Right. And that'll give you that sort of two-tone, that's sort of stamped off, and then, so you stamp it once, see it's quite dark, and then I'm going to stamp again on here, about there. That dot doesn't look like it. That one dot was still very very dark, but anyway. And then I want some more just along that edge there, this outer edge here. So again I'm going to stamp off and then stamp onto there. So that just gives you that sort of subtle, except for that little snowflake, a more subtle colour. So if you stamp off, it gives you that sort of just a hint of colour, but not that intense colour that you might have. So I'm going to do the same with the rest of these. And again I'm going to stamp off here and then just stamp on there, and again just gives a little subtle background. I'll have to wipe my desk because I didn't think about that bit. Stamp off there. Oh. And these don't have to be exactly the same, they don't have to match exactly. It's snow, right? So stamp off, stamp on. Does that remind you of a movie? Wax on, wax off. Say no more. And then the last one, stamp off. Oh, stamp on. So that's that done. Nice and easy. Easy breezy. Let me just clean that. Right, so the next thing I want to do is stamp my sentiments. Might seem weird to stamp them now, but I want to get them done before I start putting things together, so I know where the sentiments are, and also so that I can, well, so that we can just, it's more for placement. Also, once you start sticking the pieces together, it gets a little, it's maybe not as flat. So if you're stamping something like a sentiment, you don't want to be, you need to be on a flat surface. So for this I'm using black licorice, which is Lawn Fawn ink as well. And I have an idea of what they're going to say. So I have that one. And then I have this one. That was pretty good to get that somewhat in the middle. Yeah. This one too. It's going too well, I think. Oops. Right, so those are my 4 panels, like so. And then I have the long one for here. But for this one, I need to make sure that I'm not going to misjudge where I'm putting the sentiment itself. So I want it kind of in the middle there. So where this is, if I had this sentiment sort of over to the left, when this is folded over, you're not going to see half of the sentiment. If that makes sense. So this is the furthest it will come out, if that makes sense. So it's a little bit, you can see that there's sort of that much gap that you're not going to be able to see of this last panel here. So I'm folded that over so that I know where I can stamp up to. And then this sentiment is from a different stamp set, but one of the ones I showed you, I just think I forgot. I think it's Happy Village or something. Anyway, but now I can get this centered in the between that gap and that gap there. I hope that made some sense. So that's the stamping done. We have our little sentiments. Now I think I'm going to put my pieces on and then work with them from there. So let's just check this is, yeah, it's dry. So the adhesive that you needs to go on, if I open this up, needs to go on each of these little score lined areas and this whole front piece and on the back of these 2 tabs. So I will do that now. If I can find the right tape. I'm going to use red line tape just because it well, it makes the most sense to me. But it's also a very sticky tape, so it will help to hold things nicely in place. That'll fit there, right, lovely. So let me get this stuck on there and I'll be back. Right, so this is all the tape you're going to need. So if I open this up to the back, you've got tape on each of the like scored sections, which is where your little scenes are going to sit. You've got it on the main front square and on the back of these 2 tabs. So when you fold this in half, like so, these 2 will wrap round and stick to your card, and these will have your scene on it. And then this little tab will allow you to pull this in and out. Okay, so I'm going to start by getting the let's start this way. I think start backwards. Actually, no, we didn't need to do that, but that's fine. So just make sure you go in the right order. And this should fit on this whole section here. So I'm going to just, I'm going to pop these underneath. Just so I have a guide. They fit across the whole front. It's a little off, but it's fine. It's fine. And then we'll go to this first tab here. You can do it the other way around. And then just line up with the edge of your score line and the edge of your pieces so that these line up together. And go to the next one. And the red line tape is just super sticky. So once it's on, it's on. It's on. And then your last one. Your last one or your first one, depending how you look at that. So there's each of your little scenes on there, or the start of them. And then this will just simply be your like final scene, if you like. And it's, you see, it's like a little book. So before we go any further, I'm going to stick this little guy down as well, and I think I will actually use a bit of tape for that. Just makes it easy and quick. My cat is howling out there. When is he not? You can use a wet adhesive, of course, to stick this section on. Just dry adhesive works just as well. Make sure you can see. Oh, he's not happy, bless him. And just pick this up and pop it in there. So again, it's just a subtle little tab on there. So I think what I might do is actually stick this to this now, and then we can start. Oh, helps if I have it the right way around. Yeah, make sure you don't stick it back to front. And then we can just work on the scene, which I may speed through just because this is already a long video. So all you're going to do is take the tab, the tape off the tabs. And you know I love red line because it clings to everything. My cat. Right. So all you're going to do is you folded it at this first score line here. Fold it in half. You'll see those two line up. Wrap the little tabs around to the back. And then I line it up, I line this section, ignoring the tab on the end, into the center of this. And then your two tabs will stick the whole thing down. And that's it. So nothing's holding this bit together, but when you go to do that, oh, she says, then it will, you'll be able to, let me get this, helps if I'm holding it right. And look how nicely that floats. Ooh. Am I making you dizzy? Right. So all we have to do now, she says, is put all 10,000 of these pieces. Let me just show you these pieces and then I will do some of this off camera, I think, just to save some time. So I have big trees, little trees. I have two Christmas trees. I have a bunch of, what are these things? Benches. I have some bicycles. I have parcels, I have wrapped presents, I have my Ghost of Christmas Past. I have my little animals, I have my Santa, the snowman, all those guys. I have my little people, my lanterns, my little reindeer reins, some sleighs, extra snow for the top of the houses and things that don't have snow. So like the shops don't have that because they're not meant as a winter thing. Here are the little, whatever you call them, signposts. So I have a few of those. I do have one that says toys, so that makes sense. And then here are all my houses. Some of them, like I say, I've got the snow on there from the the winter village. But the ones that don't, I've got extra snow for that. And then this is where I stamped those little tiny things on there, just so that it gave it, you know, like this is a candy store, Christmas candy store, and that's maybe where you can have some hot cocoa. That's my thought. Little cafe. So I am going to arrange these on here, and then I will show you where I've put them. So this is kind of the fun bit. This is the bit that you get to create your little story within that, your little book. Now this could be on just a landscape card. It could just be on a slimline, because you've got more real estate on a slimline card for little images like this. Or it could be this way, sort of a village coming down the hill kind of thing, kind of like in the Grinch. But I'm going to arrange them on there, and I'll be back and I'll show you how I arrange this, mostly because I think my camera is about to give out and my cat is screaming at the door now. So I'll be back and then we'll finish putting this together. Right, so these, I used loads and I'll show you that in a second, but these are all the leftovers. So I've got loads of those. Plus I've got another pile just to the right of me that is not coloured in. So I've got plenty of these cut out, but it was good to have more than I needed to be able to play with and create all the different scenes, which I will show you in a second. So what I did was this is the card base, standard A2, and I've put the embossed white cardstock over the top. I've already stuck that on there just to save some time, but I just stuck it down with a lot of adhesive just to make sure it stays put. And this is going to be a sort of top folding, or what I call a top folding card, a landscape one. Then what I've also done, excuse me, is on the back I've actually doubled up my foam. My foam that I have on this giant roll thing, which I got off Amazon, is quite thin. So I don't know if you can see there, it's quite a narrow or sort of short foam. But because we've got that, we need space to be able to pull the mechanism. I kind of felt like I needed to double it up just for a bit more height. If you've got standard foam, then you should be fine. I think a 2 or 3 mil high should be okay. But I think this is about a 1 mil. So I've got that all over the back of the decorative piece that we stuck the mechanism to, and I'll show you, I'll go through each one. And what I'm also going to do, because this is now going on to embossed, like a raised embossed area, I'm also going to add some adhesive to that. It just gives it excuse me, extra stick to make sure it doesn't move, because the last thing you want is for your nice piece of art to suddenly, you know, come off the card. And this is an old trick from many years ago. So now I'm going to stick this in the middle of my card front, somewhat straight, should be good enough. Of course it's good enough, it's fine. so I eyeballed with the again with the decorative piece, not with the tab, because that does stick out slightly, so to try and get your eye in. So now I've got that, and that should be stuck nicely on there. Now I'm going to walk you through this. So excuse me, one of the main things you need to do is make sure that you're sticking everything flat. This is not, other than this piece, this is not the time for dimension, because otherwise it won't move. As it is, there's a couple of pieces on the back panel that kind of catch a little bit, so you can always add a piece of acetate over the top of this piece to try and help it glide better, but I'm not going to bother with that. So in my first scene, I've got the little candy cane. I decided it was a toy store. I've got one of the dogs, one of the parcels that hasn't been wrapped, the little lamp, part of our sentiment here. And I kind of did the scenes as if it was in two levels. So you have the front section, which is this, and then as if there's something behind. So although I've only got the snowfall as a backdrop and no hills or, you know, that kind of thing, like roads or anything, I think you still can see that there's a little scene there and a sort of like a bit of depth, because you've got the front little guys and then the main stores in the back. So then we'll move on to the next one. So you simply pull that to move it open. And this one I had one of the Christmas trees. I added some extra Christmas trees in the background. And what I also did was try to line certain things up so that it was gave it that illusion that there's space or depth behind those things. So you've got the, although these two probably in theory should be the other way around, from a, you know, going from bigger, because the tree would be smaller the further you are, the further away it is from you, if that made any sense. So maybe these should have been the other way around, but I still think you get that idea that there's depth there. And then you've got these little guys here with the little park benches, and they're in front of the park benches, but all of this was stuck down with some wet adhesive to make sure that it was flat. I also put an acrylic block on top of it at each scene, if you like, so that it would stick as flat as, and keep it as flat as possible. Then I have my cafe one, so I added a little bicycle next to the sign. This is the cafe one, kind of made sense because it's the hot chocolate one. Another lamp post. I thought the dog looked cute between the two kids. It just made sense to put him there. I wanted to get all the animals in. This one, I landed up with this big space here because I didn't really think. I did it from here backwards, and I didn't totally think about the backdrop here. It's sometimes what happens. So I actually had another, because like I say, I had to have loads of these. I had another little ghost, so I decided that these were not just ghosts of Christmas past. They were maybe family members, lost loved ones that are coming to see you at Christmas, because, well, they do every year. They're always with you. So I decided that made some sense to me. And then I added one of the other little cats in here, and a bunch of presents and another tree and Santa, of course. And then this scene kind of extends here and goes along this sort of line. So again, I've got all these different like levels, if you like, or not levels, but like if you're thinking from front to back. So again, I've got like another little cat here with a snowman. There's a couple of the houses in the background with some trees and another lamppost, and then the sleigh with Rudolph. It's always got to be Rudolph, if there's one on his own. And then a couple of presents in the sleigh, and then of course the rest of the sentiment. So this is where I say this section here is the only bit that might catch on some of these. So you just have to kind of, the more you play with it, the more it will, there you go, the more it will sort of open and close. So if I just show you one more time how each scene will just open up like so and like so. And I think it actually turned out better than I thought. I have been hanging over this card for weeks now. I've had all these images coloured and cut out, and and all the, you know, all the stamp sets and everything is lying on my desk, like I say, for weeks, trying to figure out how to get it to all work. And I suddenly thought about the Flippin' Awesome, and it's worked out flippin' awesome. So on that note, I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. I hope that your Christmas season is off to a good start. Our Christmas decos are already up, and they've been up since the 4th of November, so we got a little overexcited this year, but hey ho. And I hope to see you in the next one, guys. I will be back with more fun and more Christmassy things. There may be, by the time this video goes up, hopefully you would have seen a few more bonus videos. I will label them bonus videos so that you know what they are. They're just ones that I ran out of time to get up because I got sick and all that jazz. Anyway, I'm waffling now. So happy holidays. We're getting close to all the Christmassy stuff. I hope you guys are enjoying your day, and I will see you in the next one, guys. Bye for now.